So if you want to hit a golf ball, like further than you ever have in your life, you actually need to learn how to slam the brakes on your lower body.
Yeah, it sounds completely backward.
Right. But if you walk onto almost any driving range right now, people will tell you the exact opposite of that.
Oh, absolutely. All the time.
You'll hear someone struggling with their irons, and their playing partner will lean over and say, hey, your problem is you need to keep your lower body completely still.
Or quiet those hips, or stop dipping.
Exactly. It's probably the most widely distributed, universally accepted piece of golf advice out there. And, well, today we are going to completely dismantle it.
Because look, it's advice that usually comes from a good place, right? It's a desire for consistency. But biomechanically speaking, trying to hold your lower body still it's a recipe for a weak, inefficient, and honestly potentially injury-inducing golf swing.
Yeah, which brings us to the actual show. Welcome to this deep dive, everyone. Today we have a custom-tailored mission just for you.
It's going to be a fun one.
It is. We're pulling from premium sports science research to basically look past those generic swing tips and uncover the actual biomechanics of the golf swing.
Specifically, we're looking at pelvic motion, and dynamic lower body function.
Right, because the goal today is to understand exactly how your pelvis transfers energy from the ground all the way up to the clubhead.
Oh.
We're treating the swing like the athletic dynamic movement it actually is, rather than just some rigid set of poses.
And that framing is critical, by the way, because the pelvis is, well, it's the junction box of the entire human body.
The literal and figurative center of the swing.
Exactly. It connects the power generation of the legs to the delivery mechanism of the torso and arms. So if that junction box is intentionally turned off or frozen in the name of, staying still, the entire electrical grid of the swing just fails.
I think a lot of the confusion comes from how we consume golf media.
Oh, for sure.
We watch these YouTube breakdowns or look at a golf magazine, and we see these obsession-level breakdowns of a golfer paused at the exact top of their backswing.
Always with the graphics on the screen.
Right. There's always that graphic, like a red line drawn across their hips. And the analyst says, look, exactly 45 degrees of pelvic rotation.
Which is such a trap.
It creates this illusion that the swing is just, a race to a static checkpoint.
Yeah, and it is a massive trap for a golfer trying to improve. I mean, measuring how many degrees the pelvis is rotated at one specific isolated point in the space-time of the swing, it provides almost zero actionable information about how force is actually being generated.
Because the top of the backswing is just a transitionary moment.
Right.
It actually reminds me of trying to judge a 2-hour action movie by looking at a single paused frame of a car chase.
That's a great way to look at it.
Like if you just look at the paused frame, you see a car angled on a street, but you don't see how fast it's going.
Right. You don't know if the driver's slamming on the gas or hitting the brakes.
Exactly. You don't know the momentum, and you certainly don't know the physics that got the car into that slide in the first place. You miss the entire mechanism of the scene.
That analogy hits the nail on the head, honestly. The static position tells you absolutely nothing about the unseen forces being applied.
So what should we be looking at instead?
Well, the real question, the one sports scientists and elite biomechanists are actually asking in the lab, is not, where is the pelvis pointing at the top?
Right.
The question is how the pelvis moves continuously to manage balance, transfer force from the earth, and ultimately deliver the club back to the ball.
Okay, so if we wipe the slate clean here and look at this through the lens of a 3D motion graph, what is the pelvis actually doing?
Wow.
Because the common myth, the one I was taught growing up, is that it just turns, like a doorway on a hinge.
Yeah, the old swinging door idea.
Yeah, it rotates open on the way back and it slams shut on the way through.
Right, but the 3D motion capture data completely shatters that swinging door myth.
Really?
Completely. I mean, the line tracking the center of the pelvis is rarely flat, meaning it is never just a simple horizontal rotation.
Okay, so what else is it doing?
Throughout the swing, the pelvis is simultaneously performing up to 7 different actions.
7.
It rotates, it tilts, it side bends, it moves laterally side to side, it moves forward and backward, it lowers, and it rises.
Wait, side bend. I need to stop you right there, because I always thought of the pelvis as just this, fixed, solid bowl of bone. How does a pelvis side bend or tilt?
Okay, so think of your pelvis exactly like that, like a bucket of water.
Okay, a bucket of water.
Yeah. If you were to tilt the bucket forward so water spills out the front, that is an anterior tilt.
Got it.
And if you tilt it backward to spill water out the back, that's a posterior tilt. Now, side bending would be spilling water out of the left side or the right side.
Oh, I see.
Right, so in a golf swing, as your weight shifts and your spine angle changes, one hip socket naturally moves higher or lower than the other. And that is a pelvic side bend.
Okay, that visualization actually helps a lot. So the bucket is rotating, but it's also skilling water front to back and side to side, all while moving up and down.
Exactly.
That is incredibly complex.
And all of these movements happen simultaneously. It's a true three-dimensional response.
Wow.
The pelvis is constantly reacting dynamically to the pressure you put into the ground, the force you are generating, your posture, and, the incredibly heavy, fast-moving mass of your torso and the golf club pulling you in different directions.
I mean, I always hear that power comes from the ground up, but there's a lot of real estate between my shoes and the golf club.
Definitely.
So what is the actual mechanical pathway for that energy? And how do those 7 movements of the pelvis factor into actually hitting the ball far?
To understand the pathway, we have to look at what biomechanists call the kinetic sequence.
The kinetic sequence.
Okay. This is the exact chain of events that generates and transfers power. The research lays out a highly specific 9-step kinetic chain.
9 steps. Okay, walk me through it.
It starts with the ground. You push against the ground, and that force moves into your feet, then up through the ankles, into the knees.
So right up the leg.
Yep. Up the leg, through the hips, into the pelvis, up the spine, into the rib cage, out to the arms, and finally, into the golf club.
Ground, feet, ankles, knees, hips, pelvis, rib cage, arms, club.
You got it.
The pelvis is sitting right there in the dead center of the chain.
It is the middleman that makes or breaks the swing. It has to receive the force from below, from the legs, and transfer it upward into the torso.
Makes sense.
But to do this efficiently, the pelvis doesn't just spin as fast as it can. That is arguably the biggest misconception in golf.
Wait, really?
Yeah. To transfer energy, the pelvis actually has to accelerate and then drastically decelerate at highly specific times.
Hold on. You're saying to make the clubhead go its absolute fastest, the hips actually have to hit the brakes.
They absolutely do.
That completely contradicts the spin your hips as fast as you can to generate speed, advice you literally hear everywhere.
I know, but think about cracking a whip.
Okay.
When you throw your arm forward to crack a whip, your hand doesn't just keep moving forward as fast as possible.
Right. You pull it back.
Exactly. Your hand speeds up, and then you violently snap your wrist to a halt.
Oh, wow.
That sudden deceleration at the handle is what forces all the kinetic energy to surge down the leather and, break the sound barrier at the tip.
And the golf swing does that.
The golf swing relies on the exact same physics.
So it's almost like a multi-stage rocket.
Ooh, I like that.
Like the booster engine, which would be the legs and the pelvis, fires to get the rocket moving. But to let the next stage, the torso, take off at maximum speed, that lower booster has to drop off, or in this case, decelerate.
Exactly. If your pelvis just keeps spinning at the exact same speed, the energy never transfers up the chain.
The arms and the club just kind of get dragged along for the ride.
Right. They just lag behind. The pelvis speeds up in transition, and then it aggressively brakes to snap that energy up into the rib cage, out to the arms, and down to the club head.
That is just fascinating. So, okay, if we need all this energy to transfer, how do we build it in the first place?
Yeah.
Let's apply this directly to what our listener feels on the course.
Sure.
During the backswing, when you watch really efficient players, the elite ball strikers, a lot of them actually drop their height. They lower their pelvis.
They do, yeah.
Why are they dropping? Like, why not just turn in place and stay perfectly level?
Because staying perfectly level doesn't generate ground force.
Okay.
The lowering of the pelvis occurs because the player is actually increasing the flexion in their lower body.
Flexion meaning bending at the joints to load the muscle.
Yes, exactly. They're increasing the bend in their hips, their knees, and their ankles.
So it's not a mistake.
Not at all. When a golfer does this, they aren't just getting sloppy and collapsing their posture. They are executing a dynamic loading phase. They are physically pushing down into the earth.
It kind of makes me think of a tennis player.
How so?
Well, when a tennis player is getting ready to hit a massive first serve, they toss the ball up, and they don't just stand up straight and rotate their shoulders.
Right.
They coil, they bend their knees, and they drop their weight slightly to, load the spring before they explode upward into the ball.
And golf utilizes that exact same biomechanical principle.
Really?
Yeah. Pelvic lowering in the backswing physically loads the hip musculature, kind of like stretching a thick rubber band. and it creates heavy pressure against the ground.
Because you have to push down into the ground before you can push off of it.
Precisely. That lowering creates the potential energy for massive vertical force later in the swing.
Okay, so we've pushed our pressure down, and we've loaded the spring.
Right.
The brain now has to release that energy into the ball for the downswing. How does the pelvis act as the trigger for that release?
Well, this is where we see the transition into pelvic rise.
Okay.
As the downswing develops, the lead leg, so the left leg for a right-handed golfer, begins to violently extend and straighten out.
Okay.
The golfer is physically pushing the ground away from them.
And because of Isaac Newton's third law,
Yeah.
for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Right. If I push down into the turf with hundreds of pounds of force, the turf pushes back up.
Precisely. That ground reaction force travels right back up the bones of your leg, up your femur, and it thrusts that lead side of your pelvis upward and backward.
Wow.
That is why the pelvis rises. But it's not just a byproduct of pushing. It serves an absolutely vital geometric purpose in the swing, too.
What does that rising actually do for the club, geometrically?
It clears space.
Clear space.
Yeah. By extending the leg and thrusting the lead side of the pelvis up, you are basically pulling your left hip socket out of the way.
Out of the way of the arms.
Right. If you didn't do this, if you kept your knees flexed and your pelvis perfectly level during the downswing, your hands and the golf club would literally crash into your right thigh.
Or the club head would smash into the ground a foot behind the ball.
Exactly. You would hit it incredibly fat.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody. The rising of the pelvis creates crucial room for the arms to accelerate freely through the impact zone.
That makes total sense.
If you watch slow-motion footage of elite players, the lead side of their pelvis rises very noticeably near impact, and that movement is tied directly to the lead shoulder also moving upward, which whips the club through the ball.
See, this raises a massive contradiction for me.
Okay, what is it?
If lowering to load the spring and then pushing up to aggressively clear space are the literal engines of a powerful golf swing, why on earth do so many amateurs try to deliberately freeze their hips?
Well, it usually comes from a fear of inconsistency, which is often implanted by well-meaning but totally misguided coaching. Golfers operate under the assumption that if they have fewer moving parts, they will hit the ball more consistently.
Like a quiet lower body equals a reliable swing.
Exactly. But from a biomechanical standpoint, artificially restricting the lower body creates a catastrophic cascade of failures.
Walk us through that cascade. What exactly breaks down when I, cement my feet to the ground and refuse to let my hips move?
Okay, so when you prevent the pelvis from moving naturally, another part of your body is immediately forced to overcompensate to figure out a way to move the club.
Because the club has to get back somehow.
Right, so if you lock your hips during the backswing, you instantly restrict your hip mobility, which in turn severely limits your thoracic mobility.
Thoracic mobility meaning the ability to turn my upper back and my rib cage.
Yes, your shoulder turn. If your hips can't move, your upper spine can only twist so far.
Oh, I see.
And because your brain still desperately wants to get the golf club all the way to the top of the swing, your body finds a cheat code.
Let me guess, you start lifting your arms.
You start lifting your arms excessively, completely disconnecting them from your body. Or worse, you sway your entire torso laterally off the ball just to manufacture a feeling of a full backswing.
And I imagine that puts a tremendous amount of stress on the lower back. Well,
A massive amount.
because the spine is trying to violently twist while the hips are cemented in place, acting like an anchor.
Huge amounts of torque. Unnecessary spinal stress and lumbar pain are the primary results of restricting the pelvis.
That sounds terrible.
It is. Furthermore, if you lock your lower body, you completely disrupt the pressure movement in your feet.
Right, the kinetic chain breaks.
Exactly. You lose the ability to push into the ground, which means you have zero ground reaction force coming back up. You are effectively swinging a heavy metal stick with only your arms and a strained lower back.
Which goes back to the golden rule of biomechanics we see in almost every sport. Freedom and control must coexist.
Yes.
The pelvis needs the freedom to respond, to lower, to tilt, to rise, but it needs enough control to support your balance and avoid just sloppy, uncontrolled swaying.
That balance is everything. Too much restriction blocks the kinetic sequence and robs you of power.
But too much uncontrolled lateral swaying creates instability and poor contact.
Right. True stability in a golf swing doesn't mean standing still. It means controlling the movement while you dynamically rotate, tilt, lower, and rise.
Okay, so if I'm listening to this right now, and I'm realizing I've been handcuffing my swing for years trying to stay perfectly still, how do I actually apply this?
Big question.
How do we use this sports science to play better golf this weekend without getting, paralyzed by thinking about 3D graphs?
The very first step is dishing the concept of a universal number.
Ditch the number.
Yeah, stop comparing your swing to a generic idealized model or chasing a specific degree of hip rotation you read about online. There is no universal pelvic turn metric that every single human being must achieve.
Because my anatomy is completely different than yours.
Exactly. Your ideal pelvic turn depends on your unique hip socket structure, your upper back mobility, your limb length, and your strength.
It's totally individualized.
It even depends on how wide your stance is and how much your feet are flared at address. You should never force your body into a standardized number that doesn't match your individual mechanical capabilities.
Okay, so if we aren't chasing a magical number of degrees, what should the listener be focusing on?
Focus on the relationship and the timing between the pelvis and the torso. We call this functional separation.
Functional separation. Let's translate that. What does that actually feel like to the golfer? Does it feel like a massive stretch across your core?
Yes, it often feels like a deep stretch in your obliques, particularly on your lead side.
Okay.
Your pelvis and your torso have to work together, but they shouldn't move at exactly the same time.
Wait, really?
Yeah. During the transition from the top of the backswing into the downswing, the pelvis should subtly change direction and start moving forward before the torso does.
So the arms in the club are still finishing their journey backward, but the lower body has already started the journey forward.
That is the stretch. That stretches the core muscles and initiates that whip-like transfer of energy we talked about earlier.
Oh, right. The braking mechanism.
Yes, but this separation has to be functional and timed correctly. If your pelvis fires too aggressively and spins out way ahead of your chest, your arms get stuck behind you.
And that's when you hit a block a mile to the right, or your hands panic, and you just snap hook it into the trees.
Yeah, we've all been there. Conversely, if your pelvis is held completely still during the transition, your upper body is forced to do all the work, casting the club outward and leading to that classic weak over-the-top slice.
And there's a really encouraging takeaway in the research here regarding consistency.
Absolutely.
The data shows that a repeatable, consistent pelvic pattern is far more valuable to a golfer than a pattern that just creates the maximum amount of rotation.
The most useful pelvic pattern isn't the one with the most extreme range of motion. It is the one your brain can reliably repeat.
That makes a lot of sense.
A player who creates a slightly smaller turn but maintains excellent balance, stable foot pressure, and reliable transition timing, well, they will consistently outplay a golfer who twists themselves into a pretzel but has zero control over their braking mechanism.
Right. Control and predictable timing will always trump sheer flexibility.
Every single time.
That is incredibly empowering.
Yeah.
I mean, we've established that the golf swing is not a frozen act. It's not a swinging door, and it's certainly not a race to hold perfectly still.
Definitely not.
So for the golfer who has been told to, quiet their hips, what is the new paradigm they should embrace?
The new paradigm is allowance.
Allowance.
Yeah. Allow your pelvis to load, which means letting it naturally lower in the backswing. Allow it to shift and rotate as you transition. Allow it to break and redirect the force. And allow it to rise and extend as you strike the ball.
Just let it happen.
Every single one of those phases serves a critical physiological and geometric purpose. You are organizing the athletic movements, not trying to eliminate them.
I love that. It literally takes the handcuffs off the golfer.
For sure.
Well, before we wrap up, I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to mull over. Think about how your body naturally moves when you perform literally any other explosive athletic task.
Right.
If I asked you to throw a heavy medicine ball against a wall as hard as you could, or if I asked you to jump up and grab a basketball rim, you wouldn't lock your hips.
Not a chance.
You wouldn't keep your knees perfectly level,
Yeah.
cement your feet, and just twist your shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Your pelvis naturally lowers to gather energy, it loads into the ground, and it rises aggressively to transfer that power upward through your body.
It's just human nature.
That is fundamentally how human beings generate power. So why do we instantly try to unlearn our natural dynamic athleticism the second we wrap our hands around a golf club? Trust your inner athlete, use the ground, and let your body move. If you found today's episode valuable, please subscribe to our channel. Every subscription helps us continue producing high-quality educational content for golfers and coaches worldwide. If you have a question, topic idea, or golf challenge you would like us to research, test, and explain, please leave a comment, contact us on LinkedIn, or send us an email. Don't forget to explore the eCoach 360-degree golf intelligence platform and experience our 48-hour free trial. You can also join our 30-day golf biomechanics, kinematics, ground reaction forces, and club kinematic certification program to deepen your understanding of golf performance.